here, she would confirm this, and she's not here because someone's birthday party is happening tonight. She needs to clean the house, etc., etc. So, anyway, she's heard me go on. But if she was here, she would confirm that I'm a very sentimental person. And hearing John beat up on this building, I start feeling kind of defensive. It's like, now wait a minute, it's not that bad. But it is pretty dismal. I guess I'm representing the 90s. I didn't know that we set this up to be decade by decade. But sometime in the 90s we started coming here because Jackson was born in 99. And he and I were baptized that same year, and that was here at the chapel. So we got here at some point there. I'll be honest, through a lot of the talk about this project, I've been somewhat skeptical. And in part, it's because and you guys have heard me do this a million times, but as a union guy, I am always kind of thinking more in investing in people than I am in investing in space, right? I know for a fact that I can accomplish all kinds of stuff in whatever sort of space if I've got people, right? And the person that I've been eager to have, in particular here, for a long time is a permanent full-time person to work with our college ministry. I feel like we're called as a congregation to love our neighbors, and the neighbors we've got sitting where we sit are the students that attend this university. And what's beautiful about our parish is that it's more than that too, but in terms of I think what we've been set here to do, and the people to whom we are to be the presence of Christ, most particularly are the college community that we find ourselves placed in. And so if I thought that this building was fine and we could, go another 30 years here, but could raise money to have a position that would allow us to focus more particularly on trying to meet the needs of the student community, I'd be arguing for that. But this building isn't fine. And so then we get to the question of, all right, so if we're replacing this building, what is the way in which we do that is most responsible in terms of using the resources God has given us to best meet the needs that we feel called to meet. And I don't think it's okay for us to just do what we've done, right? So part of what I think we're always called to do is to struggle to do more. Understanding that we're not always going to be successful, but at least that should always be our goal, to not just stand pat, but to figure out, all right, we've done what we've done, but what more can we do? And I think about loving our neighbors as an organizer, right? So, and I think one of the things we got to remember is that if our neighbors are the students that we're called to love aren't the ones that manage to show up in church. There's a very good chance that whatever project we do here, even if we end up housing lots of students, that we won't necessarily have a lot more students in church. And I don't think that should be the litmus test of whether or not whatever building project we do is meeting our call to minister to the student community. As an organizer, one of the things you're constantly reminding yourself and others, because it's easy to lose track of this, is that you don't actually know what the mission is for a particular set of folks that you're working with in advance, right? I have seen some really excellent ideas wither on the vine because they weren't the ideas of the people that we were trying to organize. They were some really well thought out plans by some set of folks that weren't actually the people, right? I can give you a million examples of our own union, which is 130,000 members statewide, making some excellent plans for a statewide action that went nowhere because those folks weren't feeling it. And it's because it started at the wrong end of the stick, right? The first thing you need to do if you're going to successfully organize people / love them is listen to them. You don't know what the agenda is that they need met if you're not in a place where you're developing relationships with them and listening to them. They'll end up telling you what they need. And once you learn what they need, you develop a game plan to try and address those needs. And then you test it and you see if that works, which means more listening and more being in relationship with them. And this is why I've always been so focused on how do we get a full-time person here who that's what they're thinking about. And potentially working with a group of peer ministers to do just that, to just basically be in relationship with the students in this community so that they can learn what their needs are, so that they can struggle to find a way to meet those needs, so that they can constantly reassess whether or not they're being successful, and therefore be the loving neighbors that I think God calls us to be. So I end up believing in a bigger building project than simply replacing a space that allows us to keep doing what we're doing here, because I really think we need to take advantage of the opportunity to create a revenue stream that allows us to hire a full-time administrator so that the doors can be open, at least for I love Lorraine's schedule. That would be awesome too. I'd just be happy with a full, 40 hours a week, being able to get into the space, because there's always somebody here. But more particularly, a revenue stream that would allow us to hire a second priest whose focus is priest, or however this works out, whose focus is the campus ministry. And I would love to see that person housed in the building, and that be something that enables us to live into what I think is I talked about this when we were talking about stewardship, but again, I feel like it's incarnational, right? We are the presence of Christ on earth. That's what God calls us to be. And I think there are ways in which that is super concrete, right? Loving your neighbors means actually having some, right? If you live out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have any neighbors. It's tough to love your neighbors if you're not in relationship with people. And there's a lot of times during the week that there's just nobody here. And so I would like us to be more of a presence here so that we can be better neighbors and live out our call. And that takes money, and that's why I end up in sort of this, backing into it, really believing in this building project, because I think it's a relatively low risk way for us to actually have more money than we can raise and maintain on a regular basis just with our annual giving, and do what I think we've been called here to do, which isn't just stand pat, but to grow into our mission as a parish. And I guess that's about all I was going to say. A lot of these other guys said stuff that I'm glad I didn't have to try and recapitulate, because I wouldn't have been able to remember all that stuff. But we were going to pause here, the kind of midstream.